there's equal employment opportunity. But more importantly, that anytime there's recruitment, 5% of the employment should be reserved for persons with disability. And this also goes with sanctions and penalties. And on the earlier one I cited and this one, it actually also includes an option of imprisonment. So yes, it's going to be a challenging time to do that, but we are very much ready to carry out the implementation. Thank you for the question.
Right, so outside of these two sections I've just quoted, help us understand what the National Assembly is doing to ensure better deals for people living with disabilities.
The National Assembly is a very bright spot in this, because for decades the community of persons with disability were trying to get laws passed, like you have the American Disability Act and the AU Act. But thank God we now have the Nigerian Disability Act. Also, remember recently President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also signed the African Charter on Disability, which we are extremely impressed about. So when you put all this together, we are able to address the welfare of the persons with disability and go towards a better trajectory. What is the Assembly doing? The National Assembly, like you know, functions by virtue of motions and bills. One regard is this bill that became the Act. Also, there are motions that can address a lot of the things that we are trying to do. For example, I have moved 3 motions since we got into the 10th Assembly. And one of the 3 of them are passed the House. So those are the areas that we can actually use as instrument of implementation. For example, our very progressive leader, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, approved the use of sign language interpreters in the chamber for the first time in the history of Nigeria. So the Assembly is very much on track in terms of making the lives of persons with disability better in our country.
Right. So President Tinubu promised to ensure inclusive governance for all segments of the society. How well do you think he has gone with this promise for people with disabilities?
Well, you know, those are some of the areas we're looking at, that the executive, especially the quote unquote the government, should lead the way in terms of the implementation of this. If you follow, there was a motion that I raised on that all programs of government, there should be set aside for persons with disability. And the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs actually assured us that in all these programs and the ones coming up, they are setting aside 10% for persons with disability. And she also said that it's even going to be more with time. So that's a start. Now, in the areas of employment, I think we're grossly behind. We have not even started that. So one of the things we want to do is to have a lot of awareness and advocacy, because a lot of even our folks, the persons with disability, are not even aware of these rights that's in the book for them. And by the way, only about 13 states have domesticated the laws in their states, which are some of the areas we're going to look at, because we think that is very important. Because in the states, on the local level, especially when you consider the fact that most of the persons with disability actually live in the rural areas. So in the rural areas, the traditional leaders have a way of reaching out to the folks. Yes, I think this government has as part of the renewed agenda to make the lives of persons with disability better, and we are going to assist them in doing that.
All right, so, I mean, still on this, what steps do you think should be taken to ensure full implementation of this inclusion in all government agencies and parastatals?
Didn't get that, sorry.
All right, so I asked, what steps do you think should be taken to ensure full implementation of inclusion in all government agencies and parastatals?
All right, yeah, that's a good one. To start with, remember I said that the House functions by motions and bills. I think there's something in the works to pass in the House that will get the backing of legislative backing to the fact that to what you just stated, and that is something that is as much as possible coming up soon, so that that instrument can actually be used to definitely ensure that the different or the MDAs address that. And also, mind you, there's also a function of the legislature, which is oversight. So in oversight, I'm sure our committee and other relevant committees are going to ask those questions. That in your 2024 budget, how well have you complied with the Disability Act? So that's another instrument that is available to us.
Right. Let's now talk about the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. How do you think it can be strengthened?
Well, the Act established the National Commission for Persons with Disability, but the Commission has not been well funded, I would say, because in government, that Commission has one of the least amounts in this budget, in the 2024 budget. Mind you, it is estimated that the persons with disability in Nigeria there are more than 31 million. So for the very meager amount that Commission has to implement the Act, I think that's going to be very challenging. Yes, the Commission actually has strong leadership, and they are doing a lot of things. I'm very familiar with what they are doing. I think with support from the executive and from the legislature, we can get many more things out of them. That's my opinion on that.
All right, then, just like you rightly pointed out, in October, President Tinubu signed the instrument of ratification of the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Nigeria. Right, like I asked earlier, how well is this being implemented as well?
Well, to start with, you know, that's a very interesting point in the sense that I said the Disability Act in Nigeria we think is inadequate, and we understand why it was passed. Because, you know, when you are trying to make a bill, it's like making a sausage. Sometimes it's messy, and you just want to get some things passed because you are dealing with 360 members, and that's very challenging sometimes. But we can see the gaps clearly now since the bill is in existence. One, it doesn't clearly and specifically address the children with disabilities, and we are very passionate about that. Two, it doesn't specifically also address gender issues, like especially when it comes to women with disabilities. For example, we know there are two acts. We know we have the Nigerian Child Act, and we also have the VAP. We think in the Child Act doesn't specifically clearly addresses the children with disabilities, and the VAP Act does not specifically address violence against persons with disability. And we think that those are the areas that call for amendment. For example, we don't think that the penalty for a perpetrator that rapes somebody a woman that's on a wheelchair or somebody that is visually impaired, we don't think the penalty should be the same. So yes, yeah, we're glad about that AU Charter because it's actually larger than our own act. So it gives us an opportunity to amend our own act, considering the fact that the president has already signed that charter. So yes, implementation, I think yes, the Nigerian Disability Act first, before further amendments to include what is in the African Charter.
But what other international conventions on people with disabilities do you think Nigeria needs to domesticate?
Well, I mean, those are the two major ones. You know, you have the United Nations Convention, then you have the AU Charter, and you have the Nigerian Disability Act. Unfortunately, very few countries have signed the AU Charter, and then we're looking to doing one for the ECOWAS. Yes, those are the main ones that will address these issues. But I think that what we have on the ground is sufficient enough for us to make the lives of our people better. I mean, when you look at it, it says you cannot discriminate against persons with disability. So, and that discrimination, if you do it, if you are convicted, you are sanctioned with an option of imprisonment. It says that if you're a person with disability, not if or but, shall be able to access public buildings. We should ask ourselves how many of these folks can actually access public buildings. I don't really want to be specific on that, but ask yourself, if you are going to a public place, how many of the public places actually have ramp or elevators for them to have access? If you are not living in that particular space, you may not understand how severe that situation is. It talks about transportation. These days we are hearing that there are going to be a lot of buses coming out in the system. What is of interest to us is that these buses will it be accessible to the physically challenged? That is very, very important. It talks about aviation, how comfortable are folks when they are trying to get onto the plane. It talks about even sea and land. And the next section, it talks about education. It says there should be an unfettered right to education for persons with disability up to secondary school level. But you'll be amazed how, because of fund, it's very difficult for such persons to even be in school. Most of the let me use the word most. A lot of the out of school children are actually children with disabilities. So if we're trying to reduce the number of out of school children, we need to focus in that direction. So now, when you go further than that, then it talks about employment. And one of the areas that I actually like in the law is when it talks about prioritization. So when a person with disability is on a queue, should be given preference. When there's the emergency or disaster, they should have preference. So these things, I'm sure to some folks it sounds really alien, but by the time there's a lot of advocacy, and with your help, like this kind of program, I think that we're going to get to places. And thank you for the question.
All right. But how will you describe the relationship between the National Assembly and people with disabilities?
Excuse me?
How will you describe the relationship? How will you describe the relationship between the National Assembly and people with disabilities? Yeah,
well, yeah. I think for many years it was the adversary, but I have to say now, it's very different now. I think that that community is all pumped up now, that they can feel that there's going to be a change. Why? They know that the time to implement the act is coming on board. They have seen the moves in the House from the Speaker, and that the Speaker is a Speaker that very much loves the persons with disability. They have seen the move from the Presidency, that the President has appointed SSA on disability matters. So they think that with the collaboration and everybody on board, this time around, things should be better than they were before. But yes, the answer is that, and they think our committee is very engaging, and we're very involved, and they believe us, and they think that we're going to stand up for them. Yes, I think it's a positive relationship.
Right. So still talking about inclusivity, the President promised an inclusive government for all Nigerians. But my question is, how is the National Assembly working with the administration to achieve this purpose?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the renewable agenda, that the vulnerables will be carried along. And I know personally that is very passionate about that. When it comes to poverty, significant part of the poor and extremely poor people are persons with disability. 58% of women are persons with disability. So those are the data that are out there. Significant portion of the children are children with disabilities. So when you are talking about the vulnerable group, that's the punch that makes that particular level. So we think the executive, looking at the budget, I think the direction is good. There's a lot of intensity in trying to solve some of these issues. The question is that, are you going to say that we are 100% satisfied with the situation? And then that would not be exactly right. I think it's a work in progress. We're going to have a continuing collaboration with the executive. So wherever we think that needs improvement, we're definitely going to work on that.
Right, so finally, before I let you go, Honorable Daudu, how will you describe the way the administration is handling the economy?
The way
this administration is handling the economy. How will you describe the way this administration is handling the economy?
I think the way to look at the situation is where were we and where are we now? I think we were in a very, very precarious situation. We were not in a good place at all. It almost seemed like we were going into the abyss. But you can see now that there's a plan, there's a clear path to getting the economy for. I know it will be foolhardy for us to say everything is rosy and the constituents are happy. No, that's not what we hear every day. I think it's very tough, and I think it's very challenging, and I think things are very difficult, especially for the less privileged. So, and I'm very sure that the president is aware of the challenges that we're facing. But look at the direction, you know, when we are talking about leadership, it's not just waking up and making pronouncements. You know, it's about strength, it's about courage, it's about doing the right thing, no matter whose ox is God. It's about being ready to make very tough decisions, even if it's going to make you less popular. And in all these regards, he has scored very high. And I think very soon, New Year, we should be on a better trajectory to a growing economy like we've not seen before. Thank you.
Right, great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I've been speaking with the chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Disability Matters, Honorable Bashiru Dawadu. Thank you so much for joining us this evening as we focus on the National Assembly and the rights of people living with disabilities. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
And thanks a lot for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatuju. Good night.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Do you struggle with having an active and healthy lifestyle due to your busy schedule? Do you find it difficult to make it to the gym? You want to improve your overall health, but don't know where and how to start? Medical experts agree that walking, running, and jogging are amongst the best ways to stay fit and enjoy a great active and healthy lifestyle. What if there was a convenient and affordable way to improve your health, improve your mood,